This is an exam technique video for the topic B1 cell biology, looking at transport in cells, and it's a nice question that brings together diffusion, osmosis and active transport. So we're presented with this picture and it says particles can move into and out of cells by different processes. Figure 6 shows different particles inside and outside a root hair cell. And if we have a look at this, water is what we expect, okay? We've got more particles of water outside in the soil than inside the root hair cell. Then if we look at phosphate ions, they're the shaded ones. Again, we've got more phosphate ions in the soil than in the root hair cell. Now that's not really what we expected, because we learn, generically speaking, that ions move from low concentration to high concentration using active transport. And here we can actually see that even though it's an ion, there's more of it in the soil than in the root hair cell. So it could be that there's just been some fertilizer put in the soil which has increased the phosphate in the soil. Okay, come back to that shortly. And then we've got the magnesium ions, and they are at a higher concentration inside the root hair cell. So low concentration in the soil, higher in the root hair cell. So the question says, explain the processes, so it's more than one process, by which the different particles would enter the root hair cell, and it's worth 6 marks. Now the way I see this, we've got 3 different particles there, so really we're splitting this into 3 2-mark answers. 2 marks about water, 2 marks about phosphate ions, and 2 marks about magnesium ions. And the way I've laid out the answer here is exactly how I would expect you to do it in the exam. Okay, so we've taken our page and immediately split it into 3 sections with 3 subheadings: water, phosphate ions and magnesium ions. Please, please, please do not talk about the particles collectively, because they're all moving by different processes. So that's why I said it was a nice question, because it's bringing together all the different ideas about movement of particles into one question. So I've literally just done it in the order that they appear on the question, on the picture there. And I'm starting off with water. I've put in bold the real key points, okay? The rest of it is just kind of connective sentences that make it sound, you know, like it flows as sentences. So water is absorbed through a partially permeable membrane, okay? Diffusion doesn't actually need a membrane, but water moving by osmosis has to go through a partially permeable membrane, so we can get a mark for that, okay? So water is absorbed through the partially permeable membrane of the root hair cell by osmosis. So we've got our key word there, osmosis, because there is a higher concentration of water outside the cell than inside the cell. Okay, so we know that osmosis is movement of water from a high concentration of water, you must say of water, and we'll explain why in the osmosis video, to a low concentration of water. So we've got ourselves 2 good marks there, potentially even 3 points, because we've got partially permeable membrane, we've got osmosis, and then the definition of osmosis, movement of high concentration of water to low concentration of water. Then we move on to the phosphate ions, and the phosphate ions, because there was a higher concentration in the soil than inside the cell, it's a movement by diffusion. Okay, so we've identified the movement is by diffusion, so that's going to get us a mark, and then we define what that is. Okay, so it's a movement of particles from a high concentration, lots of phosphate ions outside of the cell in the soil, than inside the cell, so they move into the cell. Magnesium ions is the active transport process. I know that because there's a low concentration in the soil and a high concentration inside the root hair cell. So it's kind of like that greedy option, okay? It's where the root hair cell already has lots and lots of magnesium ions, but they want a little bit more. They're pulling it in using those carrier proteins. So the magnesium ions are absorbed by active transport. So we've got the name of our process, because there is a lower concentration outside of the cell than inside of the cell. And then I've boosted my answer by saying the carrier proteins use energy from respiration. So there's lots and lots of mitochondria present in that root hair cell. They are using the process of respiration to release energy from glucose for the carrier proteins to use for active transport. Hope you found that useful. Thank you.